introduction to business analysis, where we talked about who can be a BA and what skills and do you need to have to actually practice as a BA, and the competencies as well that the employer will expect you to have as a business analyst. We talked about different keywords and the language that and vocabularies that you need to be using, when you are communicating with your colleagues or with the business, and also or maybe in the BA community or with your manager. So I know we discussed various keywords that you need to be using, like stakeholder pinpoints, user stories. So this session is just to progress. So we'll talk about the roles and responsibility of a BA, which I think we covered last week as well. And yes, so today we'll be talking about, we'll just pick the first one, which is the stakeholder identification and analysis. And so as a BA, once you are assigned to a project or you are employed to a particular organization, so what you need to do, and definitely maybe your BA manager or whoever that is managing you, we actually tell you the projects that you'll be working on. And what you need to do, definitely, because you'll be new to the project, whether you have the experience of that project before or not, so you will be introduced to the project. Most times, they will actually give you contacts, probably maybe the project manager's contact. So who will be the person that, that will actually introduce you to the project. And the project manager may actually give you some background information of what the project is all about, at least for you to have an idea, and maybe the state of the project, the current stage of the project, probably maybe they just kick off, or maybe the project is already ongoing, probably maybe one BA actually left the organization. So probably maybe the BA actually, left the organization, and they just want somebody to replace. So we just need to, they will bring you up to speed, whichever way that they have to, maybe they, just to bring you up to speed, they will give you brief information on what the project is all about. And once you are assigned to a project, or you are just, given an assignment like that, the first thing that you need to do is to actually, identify your stakeholder, because the project manager, because that's the person managing the project, or the program manager, depending on the project. So you could have program managers, you could have project managers. And so you need to identify who the stakeholders that you need to actually liaise with, because for you to actually document your requirements, you need to be able to know who to gather the requirements from, and because the project manager will be able to give you some names, or the program manager or your team members, they may be able to give you some names. Sometimes it could be the business change manager, because this is the person that will, the business change manager and the project manager, they will actually help you to do some leg work, before you even probably maybe approach some of the stakeholders, depending on the organization and the project. Some projects or some business change manager, they would actually contact the stakeholders ahead of you to say, this project is going to impact your area. So the business analyst will be contacting you, to actually gather some requirements from you, just to let you be aware. So at least they will prepare them before you actually contact them. And sometimes it could be just the project manager that will actually do the legwork for you, or the project manager may just give you the list of names and their roles and their job title to say, okay, you need to contact Tom Jones, and this is the head of the Department of Finance. So at least these people, this person will, the project manager, they will give you. So that means the first thing that you need to do is to identify your stakeholder, because without the stakeholders, you cannot actually document the requirement, because you gather your requirement from the stakeholders. So you need to identify them. So once you identify your stakeholder, probably maybe via the business change manager or through the list from the project manager, you identify them, then you need to analyze them. So that is what we are going to talk about. So this one is about, the first one is the stakeholder power and interest, because there are some stakeholders that actually have, so that will lead me to the next slide. And we are under the stakeholder identification, we are going to talk about the stakeholder involvement as well. So because there are so many people, you have in the project team, you have so many people, their roles and their responsibility, who is the business analyst, who is the project sponsor, and even who is responsible for documenting the requirements, or who is responsible for to consult, or maybe if you need any. So I would discuss that in detail. So we'll move on to the stakeholder management. So the stakeholder, so this is where we have the stakeholder power and interest grid. So once you analyze your stakeholder, you need to know, because there are several like many levels, different kind of stakeholders. So you have some people that are just end users. You have some people that are probably maybe the managerials, the executives, or the directors, and it's not all the stakeholder that has same interest. So what you need to do, this is just for your own personal, how you can work around it. So it's not that you are going to provide this for maybe anyone, but it's just for your own use. So once your project manager or probably your business change, once they inform you of the stakeholder, then they will give you hints of the people that you need to be, you need to be mindful of. They will tell you some people that, oh, this person is very interested in this project. We must make sure we keep the person updated. And there are some people that will say, this person is just to gather the requirements. They will at least give you some information about your stakeholders. So most times it's the project manager that will actually give you that information anyway, because it's the project manager that is actually managing the projects, overseeing the project. So they will have all the necessary information that you need. So here we have the power and influence. So, and we have interest as well. So you have some stakeholders that probably maybe they don't really have any power, really. No, I mean, they are not really influential, on the project or in the organization. And their interest is very low, for the project. So they are not really interested in the project. So when you are doing that, those people, you can just, put their name in this box saying, oh, this person does not even have any interest, or it could be even zero. So this kind of people, you can just ignore them, but not really ignore totally like that, but you can just put them in the ignore box. And you have some people that are just probably maybe have some power or influence, but they have low interest. So you have to keep them on side. You have to make sure you have their buy-in as well. You manage them properly as well. So, and you have some people, some stakeholders that they have high influence. There are some people that just without them the project cannot succeed. So because of their influence on the project, so you need to make sure you watch them. So that's why you watch them. So it's probably maybe they don't even have any interest in that project, but it's just because they have influence in that organization or on that project, you have to be mindful of them. You have to make sure you watch them, and make sure they don't actually have negative impact on your project. So likewise, when you have some people, stakeholders that have high influence, but they just have some interest in there, so you need to keep them satisfied. You need to make sure whatever they want, you make sure you satisfy them, you give them the necessary information, you keep them updated. And also likewise, I influence stakeholders as well, but as I interest. So these ones are very key. So that means you need to make sure whatever they want, depending. So it's just like, that's why we have constant active management. So they need to be updated. They need to be make sure, just like project sponsor, because these people have definitely, because the project sponsor is the one sponsoring the project, the person will have high interest in that project because the person must have approved the resources and, approved the budget for the project. So this kind of person, you need to make sure, like project sponsor, I'm sure the project sponsor, depending, would be here, this high interest. And also because the project sponsor we have high interest, high power and high influence on this project, so it will be constant management as well. So this is just a table for you to actually know how you can manage your stakeholder, because when you go for an interview, they will ask you, how do you manage your stakeholder? Most times you cannot actually escape that. How do you manage? They may even frame the question, but you will still know that it's about, stakeholder management. And so you just need to be watchful. You cannot really ignore any stakeholder, really. But I know we have ignore here, but it's just that they're trying to tell you it's low priority. You don't really have to, bother too much about them. But, like people that have high interest, high influence, you need to be mindful of them. So because they could have any positive or negative impact on that project, so because they have that influence, so you just need to be mindful of them. And so that's when you hear anything about stakeholder power and interest grade, this is what is all about. And one thing is that one thing you need to note is this table needs to be updated, because sometimes it could be probably maybe the project sponsor or someone maybe that is on the side here, keep on side, that is as maybe some influence and some interest. Probably that person may even drop down to probably low interest. So you need to make sure for your own use, you need to keep the table, you need to keep it updated almost every time. Once you know that there is change in maybe the stakeholder, you just need to make sure you update this. And so yeah, so I've just put some name there, so you can just have this, in your own, worksheet, and just put their name so that you'll be able to know, oh, head of finance, I need to keep this person informed about the project, or I need to keep, the head of IT, you need to, inform them, you need to keep them satisfied. So this is just for your own use. So we'll move on to the stakeholder involvement. And the stakeholder involvement is about who are the responsibility of the people within the project team as well. And when you have RACI, and if you are familiar with project management, you know this terminology. So when you say how responsible, so that means is that person that is actually responsible for that task, and they are accountable. So for example, if I'm saying we have a project manager and you want to implement let's say a new CRM system, so what we need to do, so we can say the project manager will be responsible for the project. So that means is that person, because is the project manager, is actually overseeing the project. So we can say the project manager is responsible for the project. And where you have accountable, so the accountable, depending on when we say responsible for the overall, or maybe accountable for the overall project. So you can say under the accountable base. So what we usually have is like you have a table, then you have this R, you have R column, you have A accountable, C, I, and sometimes you could have support as well. So if the project involves that, there are some people that will provide support to you, so you can have that column for support as well. So then first line, you can just say overall, or maybe the project. So we could say the project manager will be responsible for that project. So the project manager will be against R will be against the project manager. So then accountable, so that means the project sponsor is accountable for that project. So it's different from responsibility. So it's not the person that is not the project sponsor that is actually, managing day-to-day activities of the project, but the person is responsible, to actually, for the success of the project. So that means that person is the project sponsor is accountable. So then the consulted as well. You have some people that you just consult, probably maybe maybe just on the maybe on the architecture, or maybe the requirements or something, depending on the task. So there are some people that you just consult them for that task, and some people. So for example, let me use. For example, if you say requirements gathering, which is a task. So now the requirement gathering, so the responsible, it will be against the business analyst. So we can say for requirements gathering, is the R will be against the BA, because the business analyst is actually responsible for documenting, gathering the requirement. Then we can say have another task that will say documenting the requirements, or producing BRD. So the BRD means business requirement documentation. So that's another task. So the R will be against that business analyst, because the business analyst is responsible for that particular, to produce the business requirement document. So business analyst will be responsible for the business requirement document. Business analyst will be responsible for gathering the requirement. And so when we move on to gathering requirements, still on gathering requirement, so even if the business analyst is the one responsible, so we can say the project manager is accountable for it, because the project manager needs to ensure you are gathering your requirement. So overall, the project manager is accountable for requirement gathering, or for producing the business requirement documents, because is the BA that is responsible, but project manager is actually accountable for that documentation. And so we can say consulting, it could be probably maybe you have some directors or maybe SMA that you need to consult, for requirements gathering. So still under the requirement gathering, we can say the SME is actually, you can put, it could be their name or maybe their job title. You would just say most time job title. That's what, so you can say SME is consulted. And it could be probably your project sponsor were just informed about the business requirement document. So that means project sponsor would be this. And also, so if you have any support from other people, probably maybe the person that will be supporting that business requirement document, so then you put them against the S. So each of these actually will be against each task. So you could have different lines, like producing business requirement documents, maybe facilitating workshop. When you are talking about how the business analysis tasks, so you are saying facilitating a workshop. If you are using an example of facilitating a workshop, so you say the business analyst is responsible for it. Project manager may be consulted. So depending on how, it's just to be able to know the roles and responsibility of the people within the project team, so that each person will be able to say, I'm responsible for it, I'm only consulted on this, I'm just need to be informed of this, or who is accountable for it. It's just to know your responsibility and what is against you, what tasks are you responsible for, What tasks are you accountable for? What tasks will you be consulted for? Or what are the things that you need to be informed? So, or maybe you need to provide support to some other tasks. So it's just to be able to know your involvement in the project. So that's why we call it stakeholder involvement. So once you know that, and most times it's usually prepared at the beginning of the the project, although it's not. So probably maybe the project team will sit together to be able to put this together, because you may not, is not like a business analyst responsibility to put all this thing together, but at least you can work with the project manager to actually define the tasks of each stakeholder, so that everyone will be able to know what I'm responsible for or what I'm accountable for. And so that is that on that one. And so we'll move on to the investigation. So now that you've actually identified your stakeholder, you've already analyzed them, you know their influence on your project, who you need to consult, who you need to actually gather the maybe the requirements of. So the next thing you need to do is now start diving into the work to start investigating what they've actually employed you for. So that is, so we'll talk about the investigation. So what is the investigation? It's like, it's just normal English, like when you say you want to know about thing, you want to find out information about a particular thing. As a business analyst, you've been employed to actually gather requirements on a particular project. So, and before now, you don't even know what the project is all about. So you don't know what system they have in place. You don't know their problems. You don't know what they want. So how do you know? So that means you need to investigate. You need to talk to people. You need to find out. You need to know what it is exactly they need. So it's, when we say you are carrying out investigation, so it could be you want to carry out investigation on their existing system, you want to carry out investigation about their processes, or you want to carry out investigation about what they actually want, or maybe about the new system, or about the problem that they're going through, or they're experiencing, or what they're trying to rectify. So that is the essence of the investigation. You want to know, you want to discover things, you want to know some information about what you've been, because you are new to that and you don't really know, except so people need to tell you. Some people need to tell you. So you need to actually meet with the stakeholders to actually find out all this information. So we have different investigation techniques, but we are going to focus on just few of it, but it's something that you can still read, you can still read up on there. So now, so like I'll explain the purpose of investigation. And the purpose of investigation is that because without you investigating, you can't actually know, you can't actually know anything about the project, because how are you going to get the information? How are you going to know what is actually happened? How are you going to know how their processing works at the moment? How are you going to know, their to be process, what they actually want, their proposed system, what they want, or what their problem is? So the purpose of investigation to help them, so that will actually help you to gather your requirement. And the purpose is just, to gather your requirement, document it, get the information, the necessary, have the knowledge of the project and the requirements. So that will actually help you. So we have different types of investigation techniques. So research, there may be there are some projects that probably, maybe the organization, they don't even have an idea of what they want. They could just tell you, I've worked in an organization before, they just say, oh, we just need a new learning management system. But they don't really know much about that, but they just know that some people are using, learning management system, and they want to actually use that to, for their learning department as well. So, and they may not even have an idea of what type of system that they want. So as a business analyst, so probably if they don't have any information, or because some people will say, oh, we actually want to use, we have an idea of a battery system that maybe some of our competitors are using, or maybe one of my, maybe they are, people that they know some organization are using anyway, and they may say, oh, we actually want to use similar thing. Could you, prepare a proposal and gather requirements on this? So they may give you like maybe 4 or 5, systems that they actually looking into. And some organization, they may not even give you anything. They may not have an idea of what it's all about. So what you need to do as a, as a business analyst, you have to research. Then where do you research? Definitely Google is there. You have the internet. So you can just type on it and say learning management system. So what is learning management system? You will now start reading on it. What are the features? From there, you can know the features, of what the learning management system is all about. So you can say probably maybe they can do, recording of they can do online courses. They can use it to print attendance sheets. They can use it to record, staff learning, so many things. So from there, you'll be able to actually discover a lot of things, that probably maybe they don't know, and that will actually give you an idea of what the learning management system is as well as a business analyst. So by researching that, so that is why we say so research is one of it. So from there, you'll be able to know, the problem, what they're trying to achieve. So by the time you do the research, then you can come up with a proposal. Then you can walk it through with your stakeholders and say, okay, these are the things that I've actually discovered. I can see, and I've gotten maybe about 5 types of learning management system. Then you can sit down together. They can tell you, oh, we actually like this feature. We want to be able to print attendance sheet. We want to be able to record staff learning. We want to be able to, they can now start telling you some of the things, the features that they actually want. So that will actually help you to document your, your requirements. You can fine tune it. Then you can send the proposal out. So that's one aspect of the, investigation techniques. And so you have another one, which is questionnaire as well. So the questionnaire, most times they usually use it for data. For example, if you are working on a data project or GDPR, let me just use GDPR, and because the information you want to identify, personal data, you want to identify sensitive data, you want to identify retention period for different things, and because you have to, contact a lot of stakeholders, because you want to cover the whole system, the whole information within the organization. It is not possible for you to actually do the, probably maybe due to the project time frame. It may not be possible to actually meet everyone in the organization and start, gathering your requirements about where they store the personal information, what type of information do they store, do they have consent, all those information. So it could be, it's definitely, it will be impossible, assuming that you have about 150, except if it's a small organization like maybe less than 20, you can say, okay, you want to arrange interview or workshop with them. But if you are talking about over 100, it's impossible. And because you have to cover all these departments, the only way you could do that is via questionnaire. So you just put questionnaire together. Like for example, the GDPR, you just say, oh, the name of the system. So you have to develop a questionnaire, like a form. Then you can send it out to various stakeholders that you actually want them to provide you the information. So that will save a lot of time. Then you'll be able to use that to populate. So that's another way of gathering requirements, because you are actually gathering requirements. You want to know what type of information they're actually storing. You want to know whether the system have retention period. So it could be yes or no, or even if it's yes, you may, depending on how you want the information you want to capture. So you design a form, you design a questionnaire. So that's another way of actually, investigating as well. And we have the other one, which is also shadowing as well. That sometimes probably maybe you may have to, see how the stakeholder is actually carrying out the task. Because there are sometimes they may be explaining to you, maybe verbally, but until they probably maybe walk you through, you may need to understand, the time that it takes them to actually carry out a particular task. So shadowing is also good as well. So you can investigate. For example, probably maybe they may tell you that before it takes them a long time, or maybe about 5 minutes to create an account for a new customer. And people may be wondering, how come? Why does it take time? You may want to understand the process. So they may say they have to log into a particular system, and they log into another one, in about 3 systems, before they pull information from one system to the other. So you may want to see this to see how they are doing it. So that is where the shadowing comes. So you want to see it. So by saying it, sometimes it gives you, a better understanding than then telling you verbally without even you seeing it. So that's why sometimes, so it's all, the techniques actually depend on the project. Then you can use your judgmental skills to say, actually, it will be better if I shadow this person so that I'll be able to understand how the processes work or how they do this thing. So you need to make that call. Nobody's going to tell you, or your manager is not going to tell you, or the project manager say, oh, you have to shadow the person to understand it. No. As a business analyst, you have to make that judgment call yourself to say, I need to shadow this person, the stakeholder, so that I can understand the requirement, or I can understand the problem they're actually going through or experiencing. I can know the duration that it takes them to do this. I can know, so shadowing may be good for something like that. So you have to, so it depends on the project. So, and also, you have workshop as well. So workshop is whereby you pull about, people together. It could be 5, 10, depending on the number, because it's just an opportunity to bring, if they have like a common thing that you need to ask them. So you may probably, for example, if you have finance, payroll, and maybe another financial, let's say, department, and you want to, you are working on a maybe finance application, they want to get a new system, so which we actually probably maybe the finance will be using it, the payroll team will be using it as well, some other people will be using it. It's like a common goal. So it's an opportunity for you to bring them together and ask them those questions. So it saves time. Then you can just do the requirement gathering there. You can do this. So that's when it comes like you are facilitating the workshop. So that's where we use that facilitation, because you need to facilitate the workshop. And when you are doing that, there are so many things as well that you need to consider. But I'm just trying to explain, what the workshop is all about. So you put everyone into, in a place together. It could be 5, it could be, depending on the number. So, and there are some preparation that you need to do as well, which we'll discuss in detail. So probably maybe next week we'll cover that workshop. And also you have interviews. Interviews is when you have like one-to-one. It could even be like maybe in 2 people. You may even interview about 2 people if they are working together anyway. So you can just use the same time to actually interview them. It's just like the normal definition of when you interview, when you are asking somebody question, it's just one-to-one. So that's the interview. And you have prototyping. Prototyping is another way of investigation techniques as well. So sometimes some stakeholders, they don't even know what they actually want. They don't really know. So how do you actually want to get that information from them? Because you need to help them document the requirement. Because without the requirements, they cannot just buy any solution. So they need you to actually come in and help us put all these requirements together. And how about if the stakeholder does not even know what they want? So they may just like, oh, we just need a website that can help us, we can do this thing. It may be clear to you, but at least based on the little information they give you, you may put something together and say, okay, is this something like this? Like maybe like a model, you can model something and say, for example, if it's the website, so you can model or you can even use maybe you can draw it, like sketch it, or do the wireframe, or maybe you can even build something and say, is it something like this? So that it will help them, because the prototyping sometimes it helps them, it aids their thinking. The stakeholder, it will help the stakeholder to actually say, they can say, oh, actually, I want this particular feature. Oh, we don't want this. We would like this box to move down. It just helps them because they can visualize it. They can see it. So they will be able to have, it's more or less like a live scenario. So it helps them as well. From there, you can gather the requirements. So you can use various techniques to gather requirements. But these are just few. So, but you can read more on that, in the textbook and maybe internet as well. So we'll move on to investigation. So now today we'll talk about the interview. So when you want to interview your stakeholder, you need to know, who do you actually need to interview? Because it's not just anybody that you just call and say, oh, I want to interview you. So you need to know, why do you want to actually interview? So who do you need to interview? So is it the manager? Is it the end user? So if you want like a detailed, requirement or detailed information about a particular task, so it will be best, to actually, interview, to interview the end user, the people that is actually doing the work. Because if you want a detailed process of how they are doing things, or maybe a particular process, or you want to understand their current process, you cannot, it won't be ideal for you to go and interview the head of finance, understand, or probably maybe the CEO or the executive manager, because they don't deal with the detail. So even if they have definitely they may have an idea, but they will not be able to give you the detail compared to people that are actually doing the day-to-day work. So probably maybe the admin staff, or maybe the accountants, or within the finance, or the all those people that are actually doing it day to day. So the end users, they will be able to actually say, this is how we are doing things. So then that's if you actually need like, detailed information. So you need to be able to know, who do you need to interview? And so then why do you actually need to interview them? So that's why I say, if it's just for high level, fine, you can meet head of finance and say, oh, I want to, I've been assigned to work on this project, and I just want to know what are your requirements, but by the time you want to start, going into detail, definitely head of finance may not be really useful sometimes. So it could be people that works under him that do the actual work, then they will be able to give you the details. So depending on the information or what you're trying to do, then you'll be able to determine who you need to interview. So why do you want to interview them? Why do you want to interview? Is it for high level? So then what exactly that you're trying to get? So what information do you want to? Is it you want to know about the process, or you want to know about the problem, or you want to know about what they want? So if it's what they want, so definitely the head of finance would have given you, because they are the people that are actually making the call to say, we need the system. So depending on so if you're looking about detailed processes, definitely you'll be looking into other people. So depending on what you are trying to achieve, then you'll be able to that will actually help you as well. So then when you are interviewing people, when do you actually need to interview, and where? So that is where you have the 5 W's. So who, why, what, when, and where. Because when you are doing your interview, you need to consider all these things. Who do I need to interview? Why do I want to interview them? What information do I need to get from these people? When do I need to interview this person? And where do I actually, carry out the interview? So then we'll move on to, before you interview, now that we know, the 5, the 5 W's, why, who, and that. So now we want to, assuming that you have a project and you want to actually carry out interviewing. So what we do, you need to plan your interview. You need to plan. because you can't just, and when I say you need to plan, you need to actually give the stakeholder enough days, because it will be unprofessional for you to actually want to have a meeting tomorrow, then you send a meeting invite to stakeholder today. No, it's not done. So at least what I would do, I would recommend at least, I would say 48 hours, at least 48 hours, but definitely it even depends on their availability as well. So how do you, plan for the interview? You need to plan, you need to check their calendar, you need to know, when they're available, you need to know, where you are going to meet, all those things. You need to make your preparation, what information, you can even prepare your question down. There's no crime in that, saying probably you can't go, or, with your question. So you can even prepare your questions that you're going to ask the interview, so you need to plan for this interview. So first, once you identify the person that you need to interview, you know the reason why you want to interview them, and what you need to do, you check their calendar, meeting invite, their Outlook, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. Once you check their calendar, you can see their availability, because it won't look good, if you actually send them an invite without checking it. You just, maybe they are double booked. They may be double booked. You just put something in their calendar saying, even despite the fact that maybe you want to give them 5 days notice or 3 days notice or 1 week notice, but you did not check the calendar. You just put in something in their calendar, say, oh, we are meeting next week Monday, 5 to, or maybe let's say 10 to 11. So 10 to 11, without even checking their calendar. So the stakeholder may just decline your meeting invite, because probably maybe they have something in their calendar already. So that's why I always advise people, when you want to invite anyone to interview or maybe to a meeting, always check their calendar to check their availability. Then you will be able to see, so they will not really have any cause to decline your meeting invite, except if and even they may be on holiday, they may be on annual leave, but because it would be on their calendar anyway, if they're on annual leave. But if you don't check, you will not know that they are on annual leave. You wouldn't know. So always check the calendar before you actually send meeting invites. And when you are sending your meeting invite, we're still talking about the plan. When you are sending your meeting invites, make sure you put the purpose why you are actually sending that invite, why you are, inviting them for the meeting. Even if it's possible, you can just walk over to them. If you see the same location, you can walk over to them and say, oh, I will be putting in a meeting into your calendar, because I'm now the newbie here I've been assigned to work on this project, and I would like to gather a requirement from you. And if we cannot even meet them face to face before you send the meeting invite, in your meeting invite, make sure you introduce yourself, because I would not, really appreciate that if you just said, I want to meet you to gather requirements, tomorrow or maybe next week. I don't know who you are. So you need to introduce yourself, for the first time. You need to introduce yourself saying, okay, this is who I am. I am a business analyst. I've been assigned to this project, and I've been given your name that you are responding. I can capture your information, at least just in a nice way. Once you introduce yourself in the meeting invite, then the person will not have any cause to come back to you and say, who are you? Why are you inviting me for for a meeting? So that is on that. So when you plan, you send the meeting invite and make sure you give them enough notice, and yes, just agenda what you want to cover. Even if possible, just put like a bullet point what you will want to cover, so that at least they can come prepared. Because it could be, because it's always helpful to even put like maybe few points or high level of what you are going to actually cover, because they may have to bring some maybe hard copy or maybe their laptop so that they can show you some things. So at least putting an agenda in your meeting invite will actually go a long way as well. And so then the duration of the interview, your interview should not exceed 1 hour. It should not exceed 1 hour. So it could be 15 minutes. There are sometimes if you don't really have much to cover, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, but it should not be more than 1 hour, because by the time you spend more than 1 hour, then the stakeholder will be fed up of that. So it's advisable, limit your requirement gathering to 1 hour. Even if you have a lot to cover, you can schedule several sessions, so you don't have to do everything just at once. So you can do 45 minutes, 30 minutes, or 1 hour, but it should not exceed 1 hour, because that will really be, so the duration. So you need to take note of the duration as well of the interview. Then the location of the interview. So it's always advisable. So because when the stakeholders, when they are actually in their own environment, if they're more comfortable, so if it's possible, you can go to if you have different floors, you can go to their floors, or maybe, or probably maybe to their location. If you're actually maybe in a different location, different building, you can arrange the meeting where they are. So at least they will feel comfortable, they will feel relaxed, and they can give you all the necessary information. So location of the interview is also a key thing, because it contributes to the, to the output and what you get out of the stakeholder as well. And the structure of the interview. And when you're having your interview, so definitely you need to introduce yourself. So you can go with your laptop, your tablet, or your notes, and you can be writing things as you're saying, but at the same time you need to maintain eye contact, because as you're asking the question, you can't just be writing, or just, put your heads down and be typing. At least once in a while, you need to raise up and, be looking at them as well. Look at them, maintain eye contact, and also write something down, so that at least it will feel, they will feel that you are not just writing, you are interacting with them. So the structure of the interview, you need to make sure you introduce the purpose of the meeting. So just give them even if it's for example, maybe a new project, they may not even have an idea of what the project is all about. So you just introduce, this project, this is what we are trying to achieve. We are trying to make sure we have new system in place so that we can have all the customer information in one place, and you can share the information. You just explain, give them like a brief overview of what the project is all about, or the reason why you are actually having that interview. Then you can ask them question, which is the body. We call that body. You can ask, discuss on the requirements. Any question, maybe it's on the processes, or maybe on the requirements or their pain points, depending on what you want to ask them. Then you can ask. And once you finish that, then you can conclude, just do conclusion of your interview. Then you can tell them, okay, this is what is going to happen. You can do a playback that, okay, you said to me that you are going to do this. You said to me that you need this. You can do like a playback during the session as well to say, we've captured this. You said these are your pay points, if there's enough time. And even if not, you let them know what the next step is going to be. You can now say, okay, what I'm going to do, now that I've captured the requirements, I'll go away, I will document it, I will analyze all the requirements, and I will document this and the processes as well, and I will send it to you maybe in another 5 days or 2 weeks time. Or you can just give them all the information so that they will be expectant. They will know what is coming next. They will know the next action. Or probably, maybe you still want them to send you some information. Then you can, or some document. Then you can say, what you're going to do now, I'll be expecting all the information that you said you're going to share with me. And so what I will do, I'll get back to you on this. Then you can review the next step for you to review it. Then we can validate that. Once you've done it, then we can sign out. So just let them know what is coming next. So that is the conclusion. So and once you actually do that as well, you can still do follow up on the interview as well. So once you finish the interview, you can send them a meeting note of your discussion if it's necessary, depending on what you've gathered. You can, because it's not possible to actually quickly document the business requirement document, but it could be the next steps or the actions. So you can just say, you can just send them an email after the meeting, say maybe when you get back to your desk, say, thanks for attending the interview this afternoon. I really appreciate your time. I'm going to capture, like I said at the meeting, I'm going to capture, document all these requirements. I will send it to you, but I will be expecting the forms that you said you were going to send to me. I'm going to, just let them know, just like a follow up, and just to thank them for attending the interview. Because when you have built that relationship with them, it will help you to get more information, or maybe their support and their buying as well. And that's a way of building relationship stakeholder, and you can easily get what you want from them. And yeah, so that's on the interview. um yeah, so, and I think, yeah, that's all for the, yeah, for the interview. So the interview is just one of the techniques that, like we said, to help you actually document your requirement. And so you can organize, you know schedule several interviews depending on the project. So whether with the head, like for example, if you have to interview the CEO, you will not want to put the CEO in the workshop. You want to have one-to-one interview with our CEO. So separately. So people like that, like the directors, you may, or maybe depending, so you may, like people like the executives, you don't want to bring every one of them in the room, depending on the project. So it's just, and there are some benefits as well, when you interview people, because they can actually nail it down for you. They can explain more, you have time. So you just need to make sure you get prepared, you prepare yourself, you plan for the interview, because you don't want to get to the meeting and just be thinking about what you want to say or what you want to ask them. So that's why you need to go prepare, plan your questions, plan everything that you want to ask them. Then everything will just be flowing. And that's it, for today.